Welcome to And It's Live, the podcast which dives deep into football's most iconic seasons, stories, and what ifs. If you love football, history, tactics, and nostalgia, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and drop us a like on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Main Event, the history of the Champions League, part 4 of our look at 09-10. That means semi-finals and the final are on the menu today. I'm joined as always by Adam Thornton. Who are we, Adam?
Yeah, good, thank you. Don't know whether I'm looking forward to this or not. I really appreciate.
I know whether you're looking forward to this or not.
You know, it's going to be potentially through gritted teeth because there are some great things in here. It's that word pragmatism that we've mentioned a few times over the last few shows. I think it very much comes to the fore in this semi-final for Mourinho. So yeah, I'm looking forward to I guess discussing it and admiring how it happened, even if it's not the way I would like it to happen. But that's life.
Oh. Yeah, I'm playing a violin for you here, David. How are we?
Oh, Martin, you know I'm a romantic soul. I studied 16th century poetry, and yet this for me is the year that European football peaked and should have been retired. And it should have European football, the concept should have been awarded to Jose Mourinho this year for completing it. And I must admit, anytime when I see that clip pop up of the Scottish guy at the airport saying how much he hates Iceland, that comes up on social media from time to time, I always think of Adam this year after what the volcano. And by the way, can I just give you a little bit of praise on your very fine pronunciation last week?
I got away with it, and I'm not trying it again. We'll just call it the Icelandic volcano. If somebody wants to hear it absolutely nailed, and go to the outro of last week. But it did cause mayhem for.
It was brave, but this is. Again, I don't know what it says about you or I as people. It says about Adam, he's a connoisseur, whereas it says that you and me are maybe happier with a great big dirty McDonald's burger or something. But yeah, I love all the matches we're going to cover tonight, but 3 of them in particular.
It's piety, really, just being knifed, I think, rather than but yeah, this volcano was an issue. It was an issue for so many people. I mean, it ruined people's spring breaks and whatever else, and those playing the first leg away, I think I'd kind of asked for special dispensation, get things moved. The UEFA said nope, you make your own way there, especially if you can get a bus to Italy. Stop fanning about and just got on with it, which didn't really go down well in certain areas. Look, Adam, like David Brent,
can you imagine? Can we just take a second to imagine it the other way around?
Oh, but it would have been theatre. It would have been absolutely the quotes we would have got. Or would he have thought that UEFA were in for him? Probably did. He certainly did. He certainly does these days. A simple question about a simple game. He's like, I wonder if this has got anything to do with me in Budapest that night a couple of years ago.
I hope not. Is how he put it. It was so beautifully done that I wonder if it's anything to do with that. Do you think it's that, Josie? I hope not.
I mean, I hope not. Might rain. Adam, yeah, as I said, like David Brent taking a picture of Stuart's foot. Let's get Lyon, Bayern Munich out the way because we've got one to talk about, let's be honest. Bayern win in Munich, 1-0. Robben, obviously. And then Olić, I'd forgotten just how important he was. I know he was a wee sneak, but he gets a hat-trick in France, and yeah, this game's clearly kind of done and dusted. It's quite a turnaround because we're going to get to the final obviously in a minute. Both teams going for a treble, right? Now, Mourinho and Inter have kind of planned this to some extent. Raul and Bayern has been a wee bit on the hip, right?
Yes, it's funny that, isn't it? I think this was the first. The last treble for an Italian team, but Bayern Munich going for it, and they would obviously get their own. They'd get their own in quick succession. They well deserved in this You can't say it wasn't. They've got the makings of a really good team. At this point, Philip Lahm still playing fullback at this point, hasn't quite been Pep Guardiola'd. Thomas Müller again, I must admit, in my mind's eye, I think we said this again a couple of years before. You just expect these players to just have arrived at World Cup 2010 and forget that they were actual functioning footballers before that. He's sort of starting to become their main guy. I think you could argue this as his breakout.
Müller obviously already was, Adam, for Bayern. Just thinking about that Germany team who are going to have a very enjoyable summer. Mesut Ozil less so. He was quite a Jesus. I mean, people knew of him. He's at Werder Bremen at the time, I think.
Yeah,
but he really did catch people's eyes. But I appreciate what you mean. Thomas Müller is already very much underway by this point.
I think that's the issue. Is issue the right word? I'm not sure. But again, how maybe football wasn't quite as far-reaching as it is now, because cursory glance at the Bundesliga, you'd pick up Bayern Munich, you pick up Dortmund, their key players, maybe the odd one or two, but Ozil wouldn't really have featured in most people's minds unless you were a Bundesliga watcher, given the club he played for.
That's the thing. It was very difficult to watch Bundesliga at the time because it didn't have the sort of coverage that it has now, where it's on Sky regularly. You would get some, but you had to want to follow it rather than a way that other leagues are much easier to access, and La Liga or Serie A, for example, are much easier to access. In the way I would argue now that France still has a capacity to surprise us in the UK slightly because we don't really follow that league.
Yeah, I think for me with France, it's just I guess it's the volume of players now, isn't it? There's all those graphics that float about, and you look at their second choice national team, and it would comfortably beat everyone outside the top 6 or 7. So there's a volume aspect there. It's almost like I'm not going to bother to learn this group of players' names because in 3 or 4 years' time they'll be at Leipzig and there'll be another bunch of players coming as well. But yeah, I totally take your point on it. I guess with back to the game, I think Olić you mentioned there is incredible. They've got that solid base. You could say it's industrious. Van Bommel and Schweinsteiger as their midfield too. Was never 100% sold on Daniel Van Buiten as a centre half. It wasn't really what I would like in there. Their defence probably is their weak point, I think, at this point. And this is before we start to get in maybe some of the centre halves that you would consider as better. Lucio's obviously left the summer before, and will be at Inter, as we will very much come on to. And I just don't think they've replaced them very well. Don't necessarily think it would have been particularly decisive in this tournament, but it's worth calling out that I would say their defence was maybe a little bit weak here, but they more than made up for it with the attack. You mentioned Robben and Olić and Ribery to a lesser extent carry them through. But it's a really good breakout season for Müller as well. So yeah, the future is looking bright again. How in different modern football history might have been had they got over the line in this game, and it wasn't Inter Milan. Who knows what could have happened? But yeah, that's for about 30 minutes time to discuss.
David, any final words on Bayern before we get to them in the final, or indeed Lyon? Did you think they ever believed really they could win this?
No, I don't. I think there's been 3 or 4 times that Lyon have got into good positions in the Champions League, and I've never had the sense that they were going to go on and win it, and I don't believe that they ever showed that. It almost felt like nosebleed territory for them when they got to here, didn't it? Very respected side, but you sort of felt they were a kind of quarter-final side who were maybe overachieving being in the semis, and they always gave me that impression too. I agree with Adam on this Bayern team. I think middle to front, I think excellent. A lot going for it. Thomas Müller instantly became one of my favourite players for the simple reason is I love these players who, when you look at him, you go, right, he's not quick, he's not a good in the air, his link-up isn't brilliant, he's not a great passer of the ball, and yet he's just absolutely brilliant. And I love that because he's sort of, well, he reminds me of me really in life. So, no obvious skills, but hopefully enough to get by. But I wanted to touch on something Adam said about Van Boyten. He scored a lot of goals, right? Which you might expect for a guy of his height. But defensively, I thought he was really cumbersome. And it was almost like the old cliche of, he's good in both boxes in terms of, his aerial ability. But his positional sense was wild. I mean, he would lose the run of players quite a lot. And to me, it was very surprising that he actually made it to Bayern Munich, in all honesty, to that level. But I suppose the counter argument to that is he's won a double and reached the Champions League final with them. So what do I know? But yeah, I agree. I thought that that was very much their Achilles heel. And, we're going to talk about it coming into the final later. I didn't know anyone who thought they were going to win, and they have good players, but I just didn't know anyone who believed that they were going to win. And given their performance in that final, I think they did as well.
Okay, San Siro then for the first leg of Inter versus Barcelona. Adam, Barca go ahead early-ish in the first 20 minutes. Two players that probably haven't mentioned, Maxwell, who doesn't get a lot of chat, but Pedro is going to come on to better things probably next year, I think, probably in this Barcelona team. It's a cutback and a finish, but it's far, far more than that. He's not exactly loitering around the 6-yard box. He's pretty much just inside the box, I think, from memory. Kind of sweeps it away, but so is decisive, so quick. And very early on, Mourinho's game plan is first leg game plan, home leg game plan, kind of up in the air a wee bit.
Yeah. I guess so. I don't think they necessarily deviate from the tactical plan very, very much. But yeah, I guess it's worth. We've spoken about Barcelona, haven't we, in terms of what their setup was? Everybody knows it. I'm sure we could rhyme off most of the team. But of heart, we probably could do with Inter as well. But it's worth sort of running through. So, in the first leg, they had Julio Cesar in goals. They've got Maicon and Zanetti as fullbacks, and I think both of them are key for very, very different reasons. Lucio and Samuel again. We spoke about Lucio. They are key in this game because they're up against this incredible front three of Barcelona's, who really on the face of it have absolutely everything. You've got Ibrahimovic as the target man, so much more than that. Target man number 10, rolled into one, whatever you want him to be. He's capable of doing multiple positions. You've got Messi again on the other side, perfect anti Ibrahimovic, if you like. He does everything that he can't. And then you've also got Pedro. So the one thing I think gets levelled at Barcelona later, gets levelled at Arsenal, gets levelled at Spain from 2012 onwards is lack of plan B or lack of variance or whatever you want to call it. Pedro, huge for them in this respect because he's the only one of the front six that goes beyond. He's direct, he's clunky, he isn't as tiki-taka as the rest of them, but he is vital to giving them that option, I guess. So you need a solid defence, I think, for Inter, absolutely. You've got a solid defence there. Midfield three, again, to be up against the Barcelona midfield three. Iniesta doesn't play in this game. I think he's injured, if memory serves me correct. He's not suspended, but they do have Keita in there, who is great. Most players, when Busquets and Xavi together, is great. Not quite Iniesta levels, but he's a solid performer for them. He does the dirty work well, maybe not capable of the magic that Iniesta is. So you need to be, I guess, on it with that front three, with that midfield three, stop them getting on that carousel, as Ferguson said, and doing those little passes. You need people in there that are able to cover ground and break up play. And Inter pick a perfect three for that, I guess, in terms of Thiago Motta, Esteban Cambiaso, and then Wesley Sneijder. So it's a pretty standard midfield three, I think, really. It's a defensive midfielder, you've got a passer, Prober and Cambiaso, and then you've got Sneijder, who's a floaty number 10. But again, similar to Etu, doing things that no other coach would ever get Wesley Sneijder to do in terms of off the ball stuff, tracking back, as well as being that guy that basically links the whole thing together. So they try their best to match it up. Sometimes it was a 4-3-3. Sometimes it was, in this game anyway, maybe more of a diamond. You had Pandev dropping into the 10, and then Etu would move up and play alongside Milito at times, just to, I guess, give them that threat. Mourinho said that you knew basically that you can't take them on at their own game, and that's, I guess, where I maybe reel against the pious argument. It's not Barcelona's fault they're better at that than you are, and I think it's equally pious. I think on the other side, you do what you believe in, and that's what Mourinho does. I think that's it. You do what you think is going to get you success, and it's going to be beautiful for you because you're going to get the success. So both teams are doing what they think is the best way to get through the game. So I really don't have a problem with it. I think it's just sensible from Mourinho's approach. It's not defensive at all. We're really against that 100%. Yes, of course, they need to be in a low block when Barcelona are Barcelona are attacking, because it's just sensible. But their game plan was predicated on getting the ball off Barcelona and getting it forward as quickly as possible before Barcelona won it back, because that's that key point that gets raised so many times. A team is at its weakest against a Barcelona or against a high-pressing team just after they've won the ball back from them, because they'll just counter-press you and your defensive shape is out of the game. So what Mourinho did there was, right, fair enough, we'll win the ball back, but we need to have absolute lightning pace and physicality. We need to have Etu and Milito absolutely on it, going beyond, because we've now isolated Puyol and Piqué, because we've left those two up. We've got a diamond in there which is squashing the midfield. We've got the fullbacks where Pandev's tracking back Alves as best he can, bless him, and they're doing their best to nullify things. But when we get the ball, we need Maicon to be hammering Maxwell, and I think that's a key point. Mourinho identified Maxwell as the weak point because he'd worked with him, as we said before. He was good on the ball, Maxwell. Great in that respect. Very Barcelona in terms of his defending. Good on the ball. Did not like it up him. Was not quick. Could not defend big spaces up against Maicon. It's easy to see why that would be as a weak link. Maicon could gobble up yards like nobody
the physicality
I've ever seen. So you
Maicon, yeah.
Yeah, so you've got the three of them, was what I was going to say there, Milito, Etu and Maicon. So yes, it might be counter-attacking at points. Yes, it might be defensive at points, but it's just sensible. It's just pragmatism. As soon as they got the ball, they were anything but. You had those three going forwards, isolating defenders as best they can, getting the ball into Barcelona's defensive third, and then you relied on that sort of second wave of Sneijder and Pandev and Cambiaso to get themselves forward and help out or get the late runs into the box, all that sort of stuff to try and get the goal. So yes, it was counter-attacking, and yes, it maybe didn't look great, but sensible, pragmatic. I don't think those are necessarily bad things, particularly when you're up against a team who play in this way.
No, they're not. We had this conversation before. Given what Mourinho's got, given what Guardiola has at his disposal, they're playing the way they should play. I guess, and by the way, as we record, which is what, 2025, the way teams have been playing for some years now is probably pragmatic, and it's chaos because there's, I think, a far better crop of attacking footballers than there are defensive ones. So you make a game of turkey shooting, that's absolutely fine. I guess my piety comment was more the club, and there are few clubs in the world more pious than Barcelona. Not that this is the best way for us to play, but it's the way football should be played, and everyone should be doing it.
But
I think, David,
I kind of get that, but it's Mourinho in reverse. So what's a criticism of one is the same valid criticism of another one. So I understand it, but you need to be fair about it. He's not capable of playing the other way. Therefore, he thinks football should be played in this way. It's the same.
We don't need to be fair about it. We don't like him. We like me and Martin. You love Pep. We love Jose. Right, deal with it. It's like blood and Oasis. Pick one.
But that's the thing. It is just a pick one, because that's the whole thing that people don't ever take into account in these things. Is it's two sides of the same coin. One is doing the opposite of the other one. They're both equally invested in it. They both equally think this is the best way to do things. And I think that's just the way it goes.
Again, given the situation and given some of the situation for the second leg, Mourinho is absolutely right to do that. What I guess I have an issue with in terms of this whole semi-final is Inter, Davey, post conceding the goal around half time, 2 goals before half time, or was it 1 before and then 2 after? So 1 before and then 2 after. It's almost blitzkrieg stuff at times. They are actually embracing chaos for a while to get themselves back very much in control. It's fast and furious, and it's brilliant at times. Sneijder, Maicon, who I forgot how good he was, but Diego Milito pops up, kind of scrappy goal for the third. His vision, his control, his composure, given they're 1-0 down, just to wait for Wesley Sneijder to kind of appear on the left-hand side for the equaliser. Again, Mourinho dominates, as we've discussed, I think, last week, dominates the clubs that he's at this point, which is a shame because Inter have got so many good players. I love Diego Milito, and I will wax lyrical about when it comes to the final, but he's instrumental here. Inter's response to the situation is a gear change. And it needed to be a gear change. There's no way they're going to see this out. It's no use to them trying to, see and block their way kind of straight back through the rest of this game. They're in big trouble, and they would be inviting a second, which finishes the whole game, possibly even before half time of the first leg.
Yeah, I think one of the most abused terms or misused terms in football is game management, which has come to be used as a shorthand for seeing it again defensively with 10 minutes to go. That's an element of game management. It isn't all of game management. Game management is assessing where you are in a particular stage of a football match and utilising your best and controlling the ebb and flow, because you cannot go all out 90 minutes week in, week out over a season. It's just not physically possible. And I like teams who can do that. And you're absolutely right that this two-legged tie gets boiled down to there was a volcano and then 26% in the away leg with 10 men. There's more to it. There is this 15-minute burst either side of half-time when they say, just as you put it there, they go, right, higher gear, go for it, all out attack, embrace the chaos, create chaos. And Barcelona, who are a very organised team themselves, just in a different way, Barcelona are then given a different challenge. Then when it becomes 3-1, the confidence we spoke of in an earlier show of we will go there and keep a clean sheet or near as damn it, comes into play, where it's right at 3-1, we're not going to concede. And then it's that change again. And I love a team who can do that. I love a team. It's one of the things I always admired about Roy Keane at Manchester United. I thought he was an absolute master of controlling tempo, ebb and flow. Martin, to use the term conductor, that might be close to your heart. Someone who can say, the situation of this match is this. So for the next 15, 20 minutes, we will do that. Maicon was superb. Adam nailed it there brilliantly, I thought, which is they put him up against a defender who doesn't like spaces, up against a guy who could dominate space because he could cover it so quickly. He was an incredible physical specimen, and he does that. But you then also have, in the middle of this chaos, which Inter have created, it's Sneijder who's keeping his head. It's Milito who's keeping his head, and that gives them the upper hand during this. But then when they get to 3-1, it's different gear, shift. Let's do something different now. Back into this plan, and the idea that, as you put it there, that they just went out there and sort of tried to deflect their way and scored 3 scrappy goals, and the other, 120 minutes of this tie, they just blocked and blocked and blocked. I don't think it's accurate. I think that you've got a side here who saw that the game situation was not the one that would have been ideal to them, which would have been score the early goal and then see if they can or keep a clean sheet and nick one. They changed, they adapted. They had the players who were intelligent enough on the field to do that, and they had the trust in the manager to go and do that. And for 15 minutes either side of halftime, they are brilliant. They are, in an attacking sense, they're excellent to watch. They're putting together excellent moves. They're all over Barca, but you cannot do that for 90 minutes. Physically, you'd run out of steam. And that is what is really impressive to me about this performance. In terms of just an all-round football performance, I would say Inter's home leg is more impressive than the away. And there's a lot of heart and there's a lot of physical energy expended and a lot of tactical instruction in the second leg, and we're going to come to that. But in terms of a football performance, I think this encompasses everything. It starts off with, we're going to play this way. The game situation changes, so we will change. The game situation has changed again, so we will change. And to slip into it so comfortably and so completely 3 times in a match, I think is an absolute testament to the professionalism of that side, the game intelligence of that side, and the maturity of it. And when you look round that side, you have a lot of footballers who, in terms of game intelligence, are very, very impressive. Guys who can do that. And I think this is a terrific all-round performance from Inter. And the other thing about that half-an-hour blitz, as you put it, Martin, is by the time they change and they go into, right, we're going to go back and maybe be a bit more defensive now, it takes Barca about 15 minutes to shake the cobwebs from their head. Yeah. And that time has been lost to them to try and get a second goal. So, yeah, I think it's a brilliant performance. And to me, more impressive, even though the outcome, when you look at it, the 10 men, etc., is more impressive in the Camp Nou. To me, this is a football performance is more impressive.
I would actually argue when it went to 3-1, that Inter had just as many, if not more, opportunities to score than Barcelona did in that second half of the first leg. It's maybe worth just talking about Messi. We've just spoke about him being otherworldly, inevitable, whatever else I've said about him, but they did a proper number on him, and it wasn't, again, the pragmatism thing of what's the best thing to do in this situation. It was a really good interview with Mourinho where he talks about his approach in this game from a tactical point of view, and he said we had obviously a few discussions about it. The number one topic of the tie season, whatever, was right. Well, not going to be ashamed about it and say we want to go and score loads of goals. That's fine, but our number one aim over these 2 legs is stop Messi from playing, which I don't think they were alone with. But he said they started with Messi and then tried to figure out the sort of eventualities or the problems from there. The issue with Messi is he always wants to cut inside and he's dynamite at that, but it's twofold. Him cutting inside leaves that space. So we spoke about Maicon eating up the space, but they leaves that space for Dani Alves to go on the outside. So then they've got another player going beyond in the same way that I keep saying Pedri now, Pedro does. And it just sort of gives them that two-pronged attack, as well as Busquets, Xavi, Iniesta, Messi in the middle. So it sort of made them unshakable, I guess, and the only way to shake them was to nullify Messi. So what he did was probably quite sensible, but again, that's the approach. He got Zanetti playing at left back, who played at left back a lot under Mourinho. For me, one of the best man-for-man technical defenders ever. Certainly this time. He's playing left back, and it was his job to not in the Chelsea man marking sense to man mark Messi, but it's his job to follow him. The issue, I guess, that you've got there as well is Pandev was playing on the left at points, and he's up against Dani Alves, which is a bit of a mismatch. Not physically, but a bit of a mismatch when Barcelona are attacking. It's not natural. We spoke before about him playing players out of position, etc. Pandev not natural there doing that. So again, there's a bit of a risk there. Zanetti, what they wanted to do at all points was get Messi and Dani Alves isolating the left back. That was the aim of the game. Even if it is Zanetti. So what they did was a combination. Basically, Messi cuts in, as he would always do. If Cambiasso was there and available and wasn't caught up the pitch or whatever, it would be handed over to him. At that point, Zanetti would pass him over, then Zanetti would stay basically in his zone to guard that Dani Alves in beyond thing. Just sensible. If not, and Cambiasso wasn't there, Zanetti would go with him so that Messi wasn't free in that sort of number 10 area to score, do the little 1-2s, etc., and leave Pandev with Alves. Not ideal, but again, Cambiasso, you would hope would be about at some point. So they say, I think Mourinho said they basically just tried to create a jail around about Messi to sort of keep him in. When he appeared, we know he liked to roam. When he appeared, whatever, there was a plan. Basically, if he's in that position, he's your priority. Whoever is near, he's your priority. Go and get him. But there is this, I guess, 2-stage plan, if you want to call it that, where if he appears on the left-hand side of the pitch and Thiago Motta's picking him up as the defensive midfielder, then someone else needs to come over and fill his space. And it just sort of worked in that way. It was like a domino effect, if you like. And I thought that was, again, just a really sensible way to do things. They completely nullified them in that first leg. In the second leg, yeah, there's maybe more of an inevitability about it, and I think you see that with Mourinho's team selection. Pandev is out, and Christian Kivu is in on the left-hand side of the attack of midfield, which, yeah, sums up the game, I think, in its entirety.
Yeah, he's a left back, and a very good one.
Yeah, but that's what you're going for, is
Yeah.
just complete nullification of that side. It's not about if they get through, we've got our own game plan. If they get through, it's just basically
They don't.
Give me two left backs to deal with Messi and Alves. But yeah, the first leg approach was maybe a little bit more nuanced and interesting than that one.
See, in the first leg, though, the concentration and discipline to do that for 90 minutes, because you turn off for a minute in that match, you are going to get punished. Yeah. And I think you have to have a lot of trust in your teammates. And again, I think that's a sign of good management, because everyone's bought into the project. If someone is weak and has a tendency to doze off, and there are players who've been accused of that in that side, and yet they don't. And I think that's why, to me, it's such an impressive performance overall. Tactically, it's the right plan, but the execution of it still requires a hell of a lot of effort and discipline, and they manage it.
That's the intensity of elite level sport, though, isn't it? And just that contest, you're up against a more than worthy opponent, and you have to be absolutely on it. And Mourinho takes credit for that, but also, again, go back to, I think, episode 1 in this 09-10 series. The signings make sense. The signings are very good at building something, raising levels of intensity. I imagine they were raised at training. I don't think for 1 minute that they just turned up on match day and all of a sudden were far more concentrated. It's just that whole thing. You can have whoever you like in the dugout setting a tone. You still need to up the game in terms of the players. For the pious neutral, the second leg is absolutely disgusting. Mourinho,
I was a neutral and I loved it.
Mourinho, risk is having the ball is risk. Don't want the ball, don't need it, no interest in it. If you've got it, you can get picked off, you can get turned over, blah blah blah. So more than happy to sit in. Forced, I guess, by the red card of Thiago Motta before half an hour. Now again, raises or uses his hand to kind of fend off Sergio Busquets, the famous rolling about, the famous peeking through, smiling or looking through the eyes, and when he's just been absolutely poleaxed, etc. But he's bought it, he's gone, and Mourinho applauding the crowd and whatever, kind of well done. You've got my guy sent off, even though he raised his hands to an opponent, and certainly bringing that question into the mix. Barcelona reduced pretty much to efforts from range, especially in that first half. I really think they really get in behind. The defender really is in numbers and committed, and yeah, it just gets silly. It gets very petty. What I find interesting, Adam, next season, both domestic and in the Champions League, when Mourinho goes to Madrid, Guardiola will not rise to any of that, and Barcelona will be immense. They'll be absolutely magnificent, and they'll blow Madrid away on more than one occasion. They get lulled into this, and they're cheating and diving and snarling just as much as the team that you expect to be doing all of that. And it's kind of weird, almost un-Barcelona kind of moment, especially in the second half, especially as time going on without getting this goal. Bojan misses a sitter. Who scores again? The big defender. PK, of course. And then there's Bojan got one chopped off for the handball before the through ball and all of that. And is Pep's given some instructions, might be Zlatan actually, and Mourinho's in his ear. I mean, it's all just utter theatrics. It's all just utter nonsense, typified by Mourinho running onto the pitch, Barcelona turning the sprinklers on 30 seconds after the final whistle. The pettiness is at levels I don't know if the Champions League has reached before or since. But it's interesting that I felt Barcelona got dragged into a Mourinho game in ways that he didn't later on.
Yeah, I think I guess they'll go back and they'll analyse it and they'll think that we shouldn't have got ourselves dragged into that. Guardiola won't exactly leave. I was going to say he doesn't make the same mistake twice, but anyone who's seen his Champions League knockout record at Man City would know he very much does. But at this point,
to be fair, he made different mistakes each time at Manchester.
Oh, yeah. That's true. But yeah, I think maybe there's just a little bit of that. This is the first time that it really crystallizes, I guess, this hatred at this point, I should say. And maybe it's just one of those things. Okay, we'll rise above it. I'm not sure the Mota one is a genuine. I'm not sure that's what he's trying to do. It's a bit more definitive in terms of the handout than just sort of fending someone off, because it's a bit of a straight arm. But yeah, I'm not. I would be raging about that as well if it was me. Equally, I'm a little bit unsure, if we're being fair, that the handball for Bojan's goal, Touré's handball, is really a handball as well. That wouldn't be given now because his hands are inside the silhouette and it hits him. So
it is harsh. It is harsh.
So again, there's still points in these games, as much as it's remembered for the victory and the result. There's probably points in these games that both sides could have felt aggrieved if it went the other way. But that's the way it goes. But yeah, I think. Say it again.
I thought PK was offside. Again, we don't have the kind of lines and
I think it would have been drawn on anyway. I think there's no doubt about that. But maybe it was all right with you.
It was just pantomime from top to bottom.
It was brilliant.
It was for punters who are not wearing scarves or whatever and going through the absolute ringer. It was a lot of fun. But there was a lot of peril clutching Davy the following moment after this.
Yeah, this was the sort of era that, everybody, in Soccer AM, they'd go on and say, we love, we support Chelsea and we love Barcelona. And everyone was impressed with Barca. I mean, we'd all sat and watched Messi in the last round against Arsenal be spectacular. But remember, Mourinho had a lot of history in the UK, of course. A lot of people already had an opinion of him. So there was a lot of that sort of anti-football and, this is not how it's supposed to be played. And I think, Adam, that's when Martin talks about the piety, it's the reaction to it, which still goes on in different ways. I mean, remember when Atletico Madrid knocked Liverpool out and Jurgen Klopp said, well, if they want to play, that's fine, but I couldn't coach that way. It's that. And I hate to say this, Arsenal fans, but he's the guy I remember kind of doing it most and first of, well, why didn't you just let us play the way we like playing? Because it's great. Everyone will enjoy it. It's fun to watch. What you're doing is just morally wrong. And look, there are a lot of histrionics here from Jose, but you can't play that card after what Busquets has done. You can't, you can't do that. We're the pure defenders of the Corinthian spirit. It doesn't work. Both teams are at it. Your point, I think, is a very salient one, Martin, which is that for Inter to win, Barca have to get dragged into the match Inter want to have. Because if Barca are playing their match, they will win. And especially against 10 men. But they are angry and they have been put off. And I think that's something that was a very deliberate tactic. We see it a lot now. We see it with sides who are good, pure footballing teams going to lesser sides. And Inter are a lesser side in terms of talent than this Barca team. Adam is right, though, that Barcelona as a club learn how to avoid this happening to them against Josie. Sometimes they still lose matches, but they don't play such a big part in their own downfall. And I think that there is a sense of frustration at Barcelona, which comes out in that slightly childish, it's a sin for us, it's a sin for the ideals of football as a sport, that comes out in the immediate afterwards. Personally, I love the sprinkler thing. I have a lot of time for the sprinkler thing. And by all means do that. But there is something joyous as a neutral about two teams who fundamentally do not like each other and who go out there and will do anything to win. It's not aesthetically going to provide you with a wonderful game, but there is something thrilling about knowing that the two pugilists really want to damage each other, and that is what happens in this match. So, I think that Barca did learn from it. I think that Barca, maybe once the initial disappointment had passed, looked at it soberly and said, we got dragged into this contest that suited them and did not suit us. But for me, again, the actual football isn't great, but it had a kind of movie quality of, I didn't think you could take your eyes off this, particularly in the last 20 minutes when will they get the goal, will they not get the goal? And
it's drama.
I thought in terms of drama, I thought it was absolutely thrilling. And then, you don't get the Hollywood end, and the good guys, in inverted commas, don't win.
It's like the tired old argument about Italian 90, quality possibly lacking in a World Cup, but drama unmatched before or since, narrative, context, that fans just living on that tension for just so many minutes of that particular that particular tournament, and it was exactly that, David. Okay, final then. In the Bernabéu, where of course speculation is rife that Mourinho will be going. In fact, more than rife, I think it's probably fair to say. Can anyone remember what was new about this Champions League final?
No, I can't.
It was the beginning of UEFA's attempt to create a Super Bowl, really. It was a Saturday evening for the first time. Showpiece event, prime time, forget your Wednesdays. It was going to be Saturday evening.
I should have, because I had just moved into a new flat and I bought a bigger telly for this match.
Just for this one match. The other thing, just to go back on that semi-final that I remember, I don't know if I'm misremembering this, but maybe conflating it with the World Cup, but I don't think I am. Twitter's now starting to become a part of the experience of watching big games and, consuming football and not just talking to your pals. WhatsApp isn't there yet, so group chats aren't really a thing. So I think there's a growing sense of a football community and putting your thoughts out there, real-time thoughts, and certainly around this time anyway. I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying there's this explosion of what is now all too consuming, sadly, but that maybe added something to that whole circus. Adam, the final, I don't recall there being... Oh, that's maybe too harsh. I think Inter were favourites, certainly for me, but Robben and Ribery and what they could do and the explosive power that Bayern had couldn't be dismissed. But Mourinho doesn't lose finals at this moment in history. Just does not. And I just could not see past it. I remember conversations about, it's going to be a close game, because it was a beautiful day, absolutely roasting day actually here. A lot of conversations out in the pub and whatever beer gardens about it's going to be tight. I don't see this being tight at all. He will manage it. They will manage it. They've won the final basically, which is the semi-final really. Am I misremembering?
No, I don't think so. I'm not sure if everyone just had the energy sapped out of them by the semi-final. But I don't remember the build-up being much about Mourinho versus Van Gaal and all that sort of stuff. It never really, which is interesting. Maybe that's just interesting to me in terms of how both teams would approach it. But that has a history. They've worked together.
And probably a wee bit indicative, Adam, of where Louis van Gaal is in the game now. He's at the other end of his career. He's coming to help Bayern out, effectively, who were in an utter Klinsmann-shaped mess.
Yeah.
Has done so. But this new guy, it wasn't pitched like new versus old. It was just, the narrative just totally consumed by this one man.
Yeah. And I think if we look at Van Gaal's Bayern, there's always a lot of chat about a safe pair of hands coming in and steadying the ship and doing this and doing that. And I think we've spoken before about the guy before the guy, in that sense, if you like. Like you said, that Klinsmann era was horrific. Van Gaal comes in, gets them structurally and tactically, they're nowhere near what Ajax were, or even anywhere near as fun as maybe Barcelona could be at points under Van Gaal. They've got a good collection of players. They're solid. They're press well, but they don't really have combination play or penetration or anything like that. It kind of is just based on get the ball to. Ribery doesn't play in the final, but get the ball to the wingers. And I guess if you were being ultra critical, his Ajax style could be boiled down to get the wingers 1-on-1, like I've mentioned there, over Mars, Freeney, George. That's completely overlooking the key players like Seedorf, Davies, all that sort of stuff, as we know. We've covered that. Lippmann, and yeah, we've covered that all in the past. But it was a big factor of a Van Gaal team was get my two wingers, absolute dynamite, get them moving. I don't think that's incorrect to say. And he got a lot out of Robben in particular. We spoke about some of the goals that he scored, some of the big goals that he scored on the way to this. But I just think coming up against a team like this, they just couldn't really deal with it. Sneijder got a lot of joy in this final, just sort of sitting kind of in between Schweinsteiger and Van Bommel, but maybe just slightly ahead of them, so they weren't really sure where to go. Obviously, you've got Milito, Eto'o, and Pandev, who would just be all action and going everywhere. Badstubber playing at left back in this game kind of gets dragged about a little bit by Eto'o. Don't think he has a very good game at all. Yeah, it's almost like a kind of combination of, it's like a clash of similar styles, but Mourinho's was just so much more organised and compact, and the pace that they had on the break. Different types of pace to the Robben pace. That's dribbling ability and going past people and on either side. But when you've got Eto'o and Milito with the balls over the top, Martin Demichelis and Van Boyten as the centre halves, I don't think we really need to talk about how much of a mismatch those are. And both these goals, it's not a final really to write home about. It's interesting in that respect, but both these Diego Milito goals, you can picture them in your mind's eye if you don't know them. They're the most Diego Milito into Milan of this era goals.
So good though. I think it's so easy to say, oh, that's just what he does. We maybe kind of denigrate it a wee bit. I think and Schneider's vision, he's through ball.
The first goal, yeah.
Oh, it's just gorgeous. But yeah, I really liked him. Like a captivating young Robert De Niro up front for Inter, but he threw on goal 1-on-1. I mean, there's just no doubt he's scoring those goals. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's. I mean, he's also not the. He's not the. Finesse wouldn't be a word I would use to describe him at all, which is all part of the charm. But he did pop up with those goals 1-on-1 coming through. A player like that, you might think he's fluff his lines at least a few times, but he was very good going through. Yeah, he came. You have to remember he came to Inter Milan as I guess as good as he was going to be. He's not a young guy when he when he joined them. So he'd had a 10 plus year career at this point. He knocked about Argentina, obviously, as you would expect, and then it was Genoa, Zaragoza, back to Genoa. So the fact that he comes in and Mourinho identifies him for that role and he performs in that way is remarkable, I think.
Davey, there is a trend at this point in his career at Porto. Not a huge club. I've won the European Cup before, but that was big. Chelsea haven't won the league for 50 odd years, whatever. Wins it. Inter, this is an obsession for Inter. The league's not a thing at this point in time because of the state of Italian football, but winning the European Cup for the first time in 40 odd years, 45, can't remember. Again, a massive thing. It has weighed heavily on, good Inter teams in the past, regardless how much money Marathi threw at it. This was what he did. Come to clubs with an obsession and something, an albatross, whatever, and removing it. Him taking off all the pressure off them. This seemed to be his thing. He's going to go to a club who, I guess, have a kind of weight because it's the 10th and all of that. But, they were Champions League winners 8 years before. It's not comparable. But he was just so good at coming in and delivering those specific prizes, I guess.
Yeah, as you know, we talk a lot about the agency of managers on this show and other shows that we do, and whether in the UK we maybe put too much store by it, and that there have to be other factors in place for a manager to succeed. But a large part of it is when managers like this do these things, when they come in and they bring success. Now, a big part of it is the fact that when you are a manager at this level, you can demand that certain things are put in place for you within the club structure. So, for instance, Pep, City built the Bulgaristan, they built the infrastructure there, and Mourinho can ask for certain things coming in, but he did deliver. And it was exactly that you say he wins the UEFA Cup as it was, and the Champions League back-to-back with Porto. That's a hell of an achievement in the modern era. Then goes to Chelsea, delivers the title in the first year, goes to Inter, gets them winning titles, which is obviously the first thing over there, but then delivers this as well. And I think that going to Real Madrid, there was absolutely nothing at all to make you think that it would not continue there, because they do have this history. They had Ronaldo as well, and you felt he would go on and do it. This is his last, I think, great moment. I think that afterwards there are good moments, and there are still trophies aplenty, and there are good sides. And winning that title with Chelsea, for example, in 14-15, was a good achievement.
Little horses.
His little horses, exactly. But I think that this was at the time where he seemed almost otherworldly, where he just seemed to be able to come in and almost like a Pied Piper, get a whole club united and following in behind them. These are very good players. You mentioned earlier, and you're spot on, that they nailed recruitment. Look at the way that this team is put together. But then there is the management, the extra 10% or whatever, the difference maker, because he's got Sneijder, he's got Eto'o, he's got them all bought into it, and he's got them performing away. He's got the best footballer careers of Diego Milito and Goran Pandev, for example, as well. But I think that at this point, 2010, just as he's about to depart for Real Madrid, this to me is his highest, because he's coming through Porto and then into Chelsea. He doesn't really have any disappointments. Then he has the leaving Chelsea. So there's the first thing. Can he come back from it? Can he recover? And also, I think if you can win a European Cup with two different clubs, I think you're automatically into the conversation of being among the greatest ever. I think it's a phenomenal achievement at one club. To do it twice with two different clubs, that's when you're at the top table for me.
Yeah, I think it is hard to overstate just how on top of the world he felt as a manager at the time. I think this version of Mourinho did more to build this myth of managerial agency, complete managerial agency. And it was kind of painted as if he was working with duds and diddies and just a team of absolute schlobs, which of course wasn't the case. But Guardiola never really got away with that because he had a generational talent and a system around the club that was just seemingly producing incredible talent after incredible talent. But this guy with a smart coat and suit, almost pulling things around like puppets, is a myth. But I don't think anyone has done more to sell that myth than this particular iteration of Jose Mourinho. He is on top of the world as he tearfully hugged Marco Materazzi in the bowels of the Bernabéu, which of course would be where he would continue his career. And everybody assumed he would do for Madrid in their short-term pain what he'd done for Inter in their longer term, but it would maybe not turn out to be as easy as that. Enjoyable hour again, boys, in your company. Thank you, David.
A pleasure as always, guys. And this was a year I loved and had been looking forward to. And well done, Adam. You've got through it.
Well done, Adam, for getting through it, but also a tour de force, I think, in the explanation of Inter and Barca and how they were put together and how they came up against one another, how all that worked for the first leg, at least, because the second leg was a bit more of a nonsense. But thank you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, another enjoyable year. Like I said, I rail against the solely defensive anti-football thing. Maybe not now, but certainly at this period, I think that does a big disservice to some of the great players that Inter had, and to be honest, it does a disservice to Real Madrid as well. My bigger issue, I guess, with the Real Madrid piece is they didn't need to do that. I think, and that's a failing, I think, on Mourinho, which we'll come to. David made the point earlier on about Jurgen Klopp asking how dare Atletico Madrid playing in this way. I think there's a point of difference slightly where Liverpool might say, I could play that way, but I don't like to play that way. I want to play this way. Whereas Atletico Madrid can't play the way that Liverpool play. They need to play that way. I think there's maybe an argument for Inter, certainly against Barcelona. There's an argument there. I don't think that argument is valid for Real Madrid at all. So that'll be interesting to start to unpick
the
that.
devil in the angel time.
Yeah, I just...
It is, and it'll become in sharp focus in next season where Pep is back on top with possibly alongside the Milan side that we kind of spoke about early in the series is about as good as club football has ever looked. But we'll get into all of that in due course for the next few seasons. But until next time, bye for now. If you enjoyed the show and want to help us grow, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. On YouTube, search for And It's Live Podcast. We've got new deep dives, drafts and breakdowns dropping every other day.